Welcome to the One Community Local Leaders podcast, and I'm Matt Scarborough, cyclist and lawyer from Bicycle Accident Law.
And I'm Leo Brasino, special education teacher and swim coach.
In our podcast, we will be featuring leaders throughout the area, and we want to know what makes them tick. So do us a favor, subscribe, listen, share, and we're going to grow this thing together. Today's episode features Justin Tramble of the Tampa Bay Waterkeeper.
My name is Matt Scarborough, and I'm proud to sponsor the One Community podcast. Most of you know Leo, who has been speaking on a couple of these, but this is my first time, and I'm really excited because not many people know that other than being a cyclist and a lawyer, I'm a fly fisherman. Wow. So when we had the opportunity to talk with you, Justin, I was super excited because I know some of the members of the community, and I welcome you to the podcast.
Yeah, it's really good to be here. So this is your first one.
This is my first one.
Let's go.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got kind of to Tampa, first of all.
Yeah, so my name's Justin Tramble. I'm the executive director of Tampa Bay Waterkeeper. Certainly a long story how I got here, but I'll sort of roll it up into I love fishing. I love being outdoors. I'm passionate about where I live here in Tampa Bay, and I got my master's in public administration from the University of South Florida. So sort of the whole advocacy and organization building. And to a certain extent, local government, sort of where I got a lot of my roots, is an easy transition to jump into leading a conservation and advocacy organization like Tampa Bay Waterkeeper. So my wife and I live over in St. Petersburg with our 16-month-old daughter, and we try to spend as much time as we can outside on the water. So a lot of my work blends in with my passion. That's the elevator pitch of what I'm all about, how I got here.
Isn't that interesting when you're able kind of to combine your passion with your work?
Oh, it's awesome.
How much more fun it is. Yeah, we try to do that here.
Yeah.
At the law firm, being cyclists as well as, then we can help the people who are unfortunately injured on the road.
Yeah.
So tell me about your fishing background, because I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so grew up doing a lot of fishing. I grew up in South Florida. So my dad used to wake me up at 3 a.m. We'd go to Waffle House and we'd go down to Flamingo or down to the Keys and just fish. So I feel like a lot of the experiences that have sort of built me to the person I am has been from experiences on the front of a skiff. Love fishing. I lived in Georgia for a while, and my wife and I used to drive our Jeep down to Fort DeSoto with kayaks on the Jeep and just to fish. There's nothing like catching redfish and snook here. And when I lived out of state, we were coming down here, all the freaking time. Like a lot of our friends and family were like, why don't y'all just move down there? And we did. And we moved down here because of the watershed, the estuary fishing. So when we did move down here, I'm addicted to being on the back of a boat, on the front of the boat. It's just been a big part of who I am. Fast forward to a few years ago, I got my captain's license, try to take as many people out on the water as possible. Never really transitioned to guiding. Certainly not up to par with like Captain Pack, like Dustin, some of our board members, and but just love it, just absolutely love fishing, and if I can do it every single day, I would. So
yeah, that's what I love about the water. Like for me, catching a fish is like the icing on the cake.
Yeah,
the cake is just being able to be on the water, enjoying the beauty, settling down, and I love the fact that you're trying to make more people aware of that in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, for sure. So I didn't know that about you, that you love to fish. So I learned that right before this conversation. well, we should fish sometime.
Well, I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to fish in a place we both like, the Bokeelia, Matlacha,
Yeah.
Boca Grande area when I was growing up. And then when I first came here to practice law in the 90s, fished a lot in Tampa Bay. And then my life changed in 2008 when I caught my first tarpon on fly.
Addicted.
And then ever since then, you know, I've been a bit of a tarpon junkie. I haven't fished a lot in the last few years. I've been doing some other things, but you know, any chance for me to be actually pulling a skiff is one of my favorite things to do
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, and then I think a lot of people don't understand in this super busy area we're in this beautiful building, some of the best winter fishing is right around the corner.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a remarkable bay estuary we have, and we got to keep it, you know, got to continue to keep it clean.
Yeah.
Not only for people like us who are fishermen, but for, you know, folks on the Leo side or the swimming side of things. How do they become more aware and involved in this project? Can you tell us some ideas that you've got?
Yeah, so Tampa Bay Waterkeeper, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our mission is to protect, improve, and preserve the Tampa Bay watershed. So we're the state's largest open water estuary here in Tampa Bay. 1 in 5 jobs, according to the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, 1 in 5 of our jobs here are tied to the health of this watershed. So if you think about the economic impact of clean water and, you know, the devastation of poor water quality, what that has not only short term but long term on the economic sustainability of our region, you can start to take this conversation, our mission, outside of the fishing folks, you know, conversation. You could take it outside of you know, how we initially started talking about being on a skiff. There's a lot of people, we could probably walk down the, you know, the hall and people would be like, a skiff?
What's that?
Yeah.
Right.
But everyone knows about jobs, and you know, the success of what we're trying to do at Tampa Bay Waterkeeper is really dependent upon how well we can communicate to folks outside of our silos. So you know, it's not just folks that love to fish, it's people that live here, it's people that are, you know, play here, visit here. You know, if you come to Tampa Bay, pretty much anything that you do revolves around water. You know, if you look at our regions or our areas, you know, high traffic areas, tourism areas, it revolves around water, whether it's the beach community, whether it's the river walk, you know, the whole Channel Side area or the St. Pete Pier. From a visiting perspective, it revolves around water. From a living perspective, you know, our watershed here is large. People don't necessarily understand that, you know, just because you live 20 minutes from the water, it doesn't mean that, you know, what goes into the storm drain outside your front door, that goes right into Tampa Bay. You know, even if you're 20 minutes from the shoreline. So tying all that together allows us to, and from an economic impact perspective, allows us to have the conversation outside of our silo, and the goal is to hopefully build a coalition of folks that represent a variety of experiences, work, just, you know, variety of experiences that advocate for clean water, that show up when you know, there are issues that need folks to show up at, or write letters, or support an organization like ours that hold polluters accountable. The whole goal is just expanding and building this coalition.
That's awesome. I don't think most people understand, like if they live in Cairo, 20 minutes away from here, how something they might do there would impact the water quality up here in Upper Tampa Bay or Safety Harbor or downtown Tampa Bay or St. Pete. Can you explain to people how that happens?
Yeah, so you know, basically a watershed, and I'm not a scientist.
Sure.
There's somewhere.
Neither am I.
Yeah. Basically, the watershed sort of conceptually, any water, any rain, for instance, that falls in a watershed area, that water will go into the tributaries, the creeks, and out into our estuary here, out into Tampa Bay. So when you look at a map and you look at the whole Tampa Bay region, and you see all the different like water bodies, that's all connected. And then when you bring development into account, and you have all the stormwater drains and all the stormwater systems that are built out, you quickly realize that it's basically like a web of all of this connectivity. So in Carrollwood, water that falls onto any concrete there drains into intentionally into storm drains that go right out here, indirectly.
Sure.
So a big thing with conservation and organization like ours that has such a gigantic, complex mission, sometimes it's tough for folks that we're trying to engage to really grasp the fact that there are short, like easy hanging fruit things that people can do. Like a lot of times it's like, oh, well, water quality is so complex, like how do we solve it? Stormwater and water that's going onto the street, all that accounts for 60% of the nitrogen pollution in Tampa Bay. So
60%.
60%. That's the largest pollution, the pollutant source in Tampa Bay is our stormwater, non-point source pollution. So creating this culture of awareness and making sure that folks understand the impacts that they have on the watershed by just virtue of knowing that what drains into that storm drain right there goes somewhere. It doesn't just disappear. That's how you change the culture of how we do things, and that's how we protect our water quality.
Are we talking fertilizers, stuff like that?
Yeah, talking fertilizers, talking grass clippings, even from a pollution perspective, even talking about like plastics and trash.
Right.
That all, after these big summertime rains where you have a couple inches of rain, you can be down the Hillsborough River. Dustin Pack, one of our board members, he's sent some videos and pictures, taking the skiff right by where a lot of that water runs off, and you just see the trash pouring into the river. And that's all just from people not understanding, or maybe not caring, or not knowing how important it is not to, let trash out on the road. That's the thing. It's like, you go have a sandwich or a coffee or whatever, and your cup falls on the ground and you're in downtown Tampa. Maybe the folks, they might not know that will end up in the Hillsborough River.
I don't think most people do.
Yeah.
They don't have that understanding.
Yeah. So how does a group like us educate, excite, and engage folks to carry on the message outside of rooms like this, Matt, where like obviously the three of us in here are really passionate about
Right.
water quality. So how do we like carry, that common sense in our perspective to the masses? That's the goal.
Yeah, and I think that I was going to ask you that question because I don't think you can beat on people to get them to change. I think you need to excite them in a way. So have you thought about that? How do you do that? Not for the three of us, because we obviously care. We would do anything, but for the general community here in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think Tampa Bay Waterkeeper does a phenomenal job balancing. We do a really good job balancing, like yelling that there's an issue,
Sure.
but also yelling that, hey, it's fun to be out on the water, it's fun to fish. Like we've got big fly fishing tournament that's one of our biggest fundraising events. The balance of making people fall in love with this estuary combined with educating and empowering them once they fall in love with it. When you fall in love with something, you do whatever the hell you can to protect it. So focusing on, the exciting part of water, the exciting part of living in such a beautiful place, with, okay, now you love it, now here's how you advocate for it. And so a perfect example, we do junior advocacy training. It's one of our strategic pillars as an organization is education, but not just educating people like, hey, this is seagrass, or hey, this is a mangrove, or whatever, which is important too, but taking it a step further and educating people about how to advocate effectively. So last year we did a program with a school over in St. Petersburg, where I went in and spoke to the middle school and talked to them about what it is we do, and then shared with them that since 2016 we've lost 30% of our seagrass, and then shared with them that, hey, Tampa Bay's been in this position before. In the 70s it was way worse, and what solved it? Well, community energy and people, really showing up and creating political will to create, this climate of, hey, this is an opportunity to invest in our infrastructure. That happened in the 70s, so why can't it happen today? So having that conversation with the middle school, and then leaving, and then the teachers over a 3-week period participated in this cross-curriculum approach, where in science they learned about seagrass, and then in social studies they learned about how policy decisions are made, and how local government works, and how the state government works, and federal government, and then in their language arts and English class they learned about persuasive writing. And it culminated 3 weeks from that time we spoke to them. We showed back up, and we invited a city of St. Petersburg council member there, and the kids hand delivered over 100 letters to the councilman, about, hey, when you make decisions, no matter what, even if they're about parks or things that might not directly relate to water quality, think about water quality. Those kids in middle school, I feel like in 10 years, 15 years, they'll remember that experience, and we look forward to continuing that, that project and doing it more with more kids. And those kids felt excited to advocate, and the energy was, wasn't misplaced. It was directed and intentional, and I really feel like it's that stuff like that makes a difference, and that's how you get people excited about advocating. Kind of jumping all over the place.
No, that sounds heartfelt. Well, sign me up. I know Leo would do the same. would do the same thing.
Yeah.
I just think that's so great, because that's how I got excited about the water. It's just same as you. I kind of grew up in the Delray Beach area on the East Coast, and my dad would drag me out of bed, not at 3, but about 4 in the morning. And some of my favorite memories are going to whatever, a Circle K or a grocery store, getting a honey bun, probably one of the worst foods on the planet, and that's what I ate, man, on the boat. But amazing memories, and I still care about it so much today. So tell me a little bit about, you do a lot of different things at the Waterkeeper. The fly fishing tournament is one of them. Can you briefly tell me a little bit about that? I know a lot of people will be bored, but I'm not.
So we have our Waterman fly fishing tournament every February. This will be the 4th year. It's a significant fundraising event, allows us to do what we do. Basically, there's a 2-day tournament. It's a redfish tournament in February, and we've got a lot of the fly fishing brands in the industry that support us. So we have an awesome raffle. We have a passionate group of anglers. It's two-person team. It's just an awesome event. The after party event is one of the coolest events I've been a part of, because we give away all this just really high-end stuff that is donated to us. We net over 50 grand. It's actually over that. I don't want to overstate the amount of money that we make, but it really supports our mission and allows us to continue to grow. So this coming year, the dates are February again. I think it's the 16th, 17th. I might have to go back and check that. But
I gotta put it on my calendar.
Yeah.
Justin's been giving me a hard time about not doing it.
You've
the
never
last
done
2
it?
years. I've not
come
done it.
on, man.
I haven't done it.
Yeah, it's just an awesome. Hell's Bay brings a skiff out. They park it in front of the Bradenton Yacht Club.
Right.
Costa, they donate a bunch of sunglasses. It's just a really fun event, and we started this conversation talking about how we can like engage outside of our silos. But I'll tell you what, like the fly fishing community here in Tampa Bay has really driven the growth of Tampa Bay Waterkeeper, the fishing industry in general.
Sure.
A lot of folks look at us as, kind of like a more local Captains for Clean Water, but with, those guys do awesome work down there and for the Everglades.
They do.
But what separates us is that we're obviously local Tampa Bay, and then we litigate Clean Water Act cases. So, there's a lot of support for not just building this coalition, not just educating and doing the advocacy work and policy stuff, but then suing folks that pollute our waters. That really gets our community excited and involved, and to a certain extent, it's certainly separated us from a lot of the other conservation groups here in Tampa Bay. So.
Now, it's my understanding that the Waterkeeper Alliance was actually, in a way, started by Robert Kennedy Jr. Am I right about that?
Yeah, one of the
one of the originals, and then that has spread not only throughout the country but throughout the world.
Throughout the world, there's over 350 waterkeeper groups like us. I believe there's roughly 15 in Florida. You have groups like the Miami Waterkeeper, Suncoast Waterkeeper, Matanzas, Apalachicola. Yeah, there's several. Florida's sort of ground zero for water quality conservation. So for a variety of reasons, but the waterkeeper groups here are certainly impactful and certainly fight the good fight. We're really proud to be a part of the Waterkeeper Alliance. So.
Yeah, I think Apalachicola is kind of a cautionary tale for Tampa Bay, just because when I first started going up there, and I got lucky enough to fish for tarpon up there a few times, but I would go across the bay and you see all those oystermen literally dragging oysters old school out of that bay every day, and they're amazing. And now it's my understanding that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
That's all because of the water flow out of Atlanta.
Was it the Chattahoochee River or the river or something?
Yeah, I don't recall, but just the water flow out of that river has kind of ruined the oyster industry. So I would hate for something like that. We already had the seagrass problems that we have here. I would hate for that to kind of happen to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
If we don't take care of it.
Yeah, another good example is the Indian River Lagoon. And, growing up in South Florida, that was, although I spent a lot of time going down to Flamingo, another option was, driving up 95 and fishing, the IRL. We didn't do that very much, because the water quality started to significantly degrade there. And you hear and read stories about some of the seagrass loss there and just some of the issues that they have. We're not there. Tampa Bay is resilient. We have downward trend with our seagrass, but I will say that we've been doing a project with the Tampa Bay Estuary Program over the last several weeks. We're going to do it throughout the summer. Seagrass monitoring project, and actually right out here is one of our sites.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'll say, anecdotally, the water quality right now, despite the seagrass loss that's well documented, we're doing okay at the moment. I think it's really important, though, as an organization to not be super reactive, or as a community to maintain this steady need to protect our estuary. You're not always going to have Piney Point disaster,
Right.
And obviously when those things happen, there's a lot of attention and awareness to why our watershed is so important. But I think the consistency in playing like this long-term game is really huge, and will hopefully allow us to protect Tampa Bay so that we don't become, one of the stories that someone talks about, like, oh, we don't want to be like Tampa Bay. We want to be like we really want to be like Tampa Bay.
Want to be like that.
And I think historically that is a conversation that people have worldwide. I mean, we're an urbanized estuary that in the 70s had horrendous water quality. We've come a long way, and there's reasons. Infrastructure investments, Clean Water Act, certain policies. We no longer dump untreated wastewater into our watershed. Well, at least we don't intentionally do it, and when we do it, people hear from us. But we've come a long way, and it's because of the community's engagement and love of what we have here. So as we grow as a region, we need to make sure that we understand why we all live here, why people keep flocking here. It's not because of the West Shore Mall, or it's because of our Tampa Bay. It's because of the water, and just creating that culture of awareness is really important, outside of just this conversation or our organization, but the business community here needs to understand that there's an ROI to protect our water quality. Tourism industry is massive here in Tampa Bay. There's no reason why the tourism industry shouldn't be alongside our efforts to protect and improve and preserve our water.
Should be in lockstep.
Lockstep, yep.
So you got the fly fishing tournament. You talked about your community outreach with, the schools, which is amazing. I know you do some fundraising like at, or community outreach at like Green Bench.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been to one of those either, which I need to go to.
Yeah.
It's pretty lame of me.
Come on.
What else do you do?
So on that Green Bench note, really quick, we have a local business advisory committee.
Okay.
We just are in the process of completing a project where we invited several of our partners. We've got ESPN events, the Gasparilla Bowl, Green Bench Brewery, a few groups, Tampa Bay Kayak Anglers, the Betty Shop, which is in St. Pete Beach, Edge Marine. Okay, I was like, oh, I can't forget Edge Marine. They're another company they're a dock building company. So we got this group of folks that have been meeting every 2 weeks to talk about how we can improve our messaging with the business community, but not necessarily from like an advocacy group talking to businesses or the science community talking to businesses, but rather peer-to-peer communication. So the local business advisory committee came up with this Stormwater Smart initiative that the intent is to celebrate businesses that are taking steps to mitigate water quality issues from stormwater runoff. And Green Bench was one of the first organizations to go through that program with us, and they, I believe, planted some Florida-friendly landscaping or some Florida-friendly plants around their facility. And so now they have this big Tampa Bay Waterkeeper plaque in their beer garden.
Awesome.
And we look forward to continuing that work. So we do the whole month of November is Tampa Bay Waterkeeper month at Green Bench. They give us a percentage of sales from beer and do a bunch of events.
Go to Green Bench.
Go to Green Bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you asked about what else we do. Policy and supporting good clean water policy and fighting policy that's not in the best interest of good water quality is also a big part of our organization.
Right.
This past legislative session, our group was involved in sort of rallying the community to submit veto requests for several bills. Ultimately, we weren't successful, but we were successful in gathering support. So, for instance, and there's a few, but the state just established a fertilizer ban preemption. that will essentially, for a year, will not allow municipalities to pass any rainy season fertilizer bans for a year, and will not allow municipalities that have existing fertilizer ban ordinances to change any of their ordinances. So it's basically like a pause for the University of Florida to do a study on the effectiveness of rainy season fertilizer bans. We believe that sort of the play here is, you know, for this study to come out saying, well, it's not really that effective, and then the future play will be, okay, well, if it's not that effective, municipalities shouldn't be able to do rainy season fertilizer bans, which in our minds, and most people that I've talked to, because no one's sitting around a bar or like at their kids' soccer practice or swim or bike riding saying like, hey, like I hate the damn fertilizer ban. Like
Right.
no one, that's not coming up grassroots. That's
No.
like people, that's special interests. That's essentially, you know, protecting a few people's bottom line, like, right? Our organization with the other waterkeeper organizations in Florida generated over 1,000 letters requesting veto. This is sort of our first foray into the policy, and we see that we have a significant chance to communicate and prop up our organization's voice, or like our community's voice. So although we weren't successful in getting that vetoed, we see now the power of our community, and we're growing rapidly, and that's going to be an area that will allow us to fight for clean water more effectively. So we'll still litigate, we'll still do what we do, but we're going to lean into projecting our community's energy and making sure that when there are things that threaten water quality here in Tampa Bay, our elected officials know about it. And on the flip side, when there's good things that happen, or you know, municipalities need support, you know, to pass funding for big infrastructure projects, we'll be there to celebrate that and push that as well. So that's sort of the third pillar of our organization. So environmental enforcement, the education, advocacy, and then policy. And hopefully that's like the Tower of Terror elevators.
the Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
So switching to kind of the endurance community and what Leo so passionately does, how do you think that we, especially kind of the swimming community, which I should be more of a part of, but I'm not, how can we help Tampa Bay and the waterkeeper community?
Yeah, so Leo has done an awesome job connecting us to the open water swim community, mainly through our water quality testing. So another thing that we do is we publish water quality data bi-weekly. So we have sites that we test for fecal indicator bacteria, and we blast that everywhere, you know. We also share the municipality's data, water quality data. So it's really difficult, or I've found that it's difficult to find water quality data when you go, you know, on the municipality's websites and stuff. So I feel like our data is really easy, and we consolidate it all, and
That's great.
we put it all out there. So I know the open water swim community, that's a way for us to reach out and, you know, I guess for lack of a better phrase, partner in a sense, because it's
definitely.
effective.
And the app, do you have an app?
Yeah, we have an app. So the swim app is, you know, it's a really effective way to connect with that community. I think we look forward to doing future events and being more a part of, you know, kind of the same thing that we do with the fly fishing tournament. We'd love to be able to like do that with the open water swim community. We'd love to be able to do that with our, you know, kayaking and paddleboarding friends. You know, and that's coming. But I think getting involved with us and supporting us, like we have monthly membership, so for $10 a month, you basically, it's called the Redfish plan. All of our plans, it's like Redfish, like Parker. But those plans and supporting us monetarily, financially, allows us to do the water quality testing, allows us to organize support for some of this policy stuff, allows us to litigate Clean Water Act cases, allows us to grow. And so how can different communities support us is just individually becoming a member of the organization is huge. And even wearing the Tampa Bay waterkeeper stuff and making sure that when you're out on the water or swimming or you're rocking it and you're wearing it because it goes beyond just like wearing it. It's like I'm a part of something. I'm a part of advocating for clean water here. So when people buy this stuff, I think it's really cool because I feel like the logo is cool, but then it supports us. It allows us to do what we do. So buy merch, become a member. That's the low-hanging fruit.
That's awesome. I think the question that a lot of people have, not only in Tampa Bay, but I think whoever's visiting here, they hear two words and they get freaked out. And rightfully so in ways. It's red tide.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me about kind of the status? Because we had an early bloom of red tide this year, which I guess was strange, I'm not sure, from an environmental perspective, but kind of what's the status of that moving forward with Tampa Bay? It's a hard question, I know.
Yeah, it's a hard question, and I'm not, there's people that are way more qualified. I will say that FWC puts out a report. I believe they do it every Friday now, but we haven't had any red tide in several months now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's important to note that red tide is naturally occurring, right? What's not natural is, important to note that red tide is naturally occurring, right? I'll say that FWC puts out a report. I believe they do it every Friday now, but we haven't had any red tide in several months now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's important to note that red tide is naturally occurring, right? What's not natural is fueling a fire, right? So when we talked about earlier stormwater accounting for 60% of the pollution, the nitrogen pollution here in Tampa Bay, that is exactly what fuels our harmful algal blooms. So controlling our nitrogen input, our nutrient pollution in Tampa Bay will allow us to mitigate the impacts of red tide to a certain extent. I mean, it's just like, a forest fire that started by lightning, like that's natural, right? But if someone comes along and dumps a bunch of gasoline and it grows and grows and grows, that's not natural. And so that's the same way that we look at red tide. So controlling the nitrogen input is essential.
So something that, of course I've heard about is the patrol program.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we got a grant with the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, part of their Bay Mini grants, to leverage the growth of our organization, which is essentially just a bunch of people that like to be on the water, to leverage that to create a way for us to communicate data from folks that are always out on the water. And then also to identify water quality issues, pollution, spills, that type of thing. Prior to this job, I used to work for the city of Treasure Island. I was the assistant Parks and Rec director there. And so a big part of my job was, managing the beach and managing like our marina there. And folks would call with water quality issues, concerns, stuff that was somewhat off the wall. So it used to take me, an hour to figure out, okay, a resident's calling because, one of their neighbors has some construction and the folks are dumping, you know, the sediment or whatever into the canal.
Right.
Like, who do they call? I'd have to sit there and like call a bunch of people at Pinellas County and figure out who I needed to talk to. It's hard to report things. So the idea behind our patrol program was like, look, we got, you know, 9,000-10,000 people that follow us on social media. Most of those people are out on the water all the time. Those people, if given the proper way to report things, that's a huge asset to our community.
Sure.
So we consolidated all of the reportable information that, at least, you know, right now, and reached out to the entities that are the folks that receive these concerns and issues, and asked them for, okay, what's the proper way to report? And we have it all consolidated on one page.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the idea now is we have this QR code. We're gonna have thousands of them in the Tampa Bay area. You know, I have one on my skiff. There's one on the Tampa Bay waterkeeper skiff. There's one on my Yeti tumbler. Businesses have reached out to us, freedom boat clubs, kayak tour companies. They're gonna put it everywhere. And if you see something out on the water that deserves, you know, to be reported, you scan it, and everyone's got their smartphone, and boom, done. You know, you don't have to sit there and Google or call a bunch of people. It's all there. And things like, you know, reporting an endangered sawfish to spotted eagle ray, gas leak, you know, any wastewater issue, you can report pretty much everything we can think of.
We'll be proud to, you know, have that at all of our events, because I think that's an incredible thing.
Yeah.
What a power, and you're empowering all the people on the bay. I mean, because all of us see all kinds of crazy stuff all the time.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, who do I need to call?
Yeah.
Don't know. Is it FWC? Is somebody harassing the manatee, or
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is? So I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, think about too, there's not that many, like a lot of the folks that are gathering data that inevitably factors into policy decisions. There's only a few folks that are able to like get out on the water. Like, we're doing this project with the estuary program. That's 2 scientists doing the seagrass monitoring. Now there's a few more scientists doing that type of work, but think about a Saturday right out here, like looking out here. Think about like all of the people on a busy Saturday, Sunday,
Right.
that are out on the water that, if given the right tool, can become like citizen scientists. And that, from a grassroots perspective, that's what like we're all about. Like our, you know, I talked about our mission, talked about protecting and improving, preserving the bay, and talked about our strategic pillars. But it all just comes down to building this community of folks like the 3 of us that just love to be on the water and are passionate about it. And it's probably a significant reason why we're here. Giving folks like us the tools to be a player in protecting what we love. And this project, I'm really proud of our organization, because I really feel like it, you know, it boils down to like the core of what we're all about.
Sure, because you're empowering everybody.
Yeah.
It's not just the people on high,
Yeah.
you know, that are calling the shots.
Yeah.
People feel a part of it.
For sure.
That's great.
Yeah. And that goes into the whole coalition building. If the more people that fall in love with this place, the more people that then feel a part of protecting this place, the more power we have, not as an organization, the more power our community has to protect Tampa Bay.
Well, I've never met you before, but I mean, your leadership in this area and your ability to speak on it is incredible. So, you know, I greatly appreciate your time here today. We're trying to, you know, show our local heroes, because you listen to a podcast and it might be somebody we've heard about or seen on 5 or 6 different podcasts, but you coming on and being able to shine the light on you and the organization is super important for us. What traits do you think that you know, were instilled growing up that's allowed you to do this in this part of your life?
I appreciate
What a great question.
those
That's a great
comments.
question.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
It's true.
I'm humbled by that.
Yeah.
I think we both sort of shared the same, there's this common like there's this common like theme through what we talked about, and you talked about eating that honey bun. I can't get it out.
Right.
But it's falling in love and being passionate about where you are, that I know you talked about, and I know I talked about in this hour or whatever. You know, passion and energy is something that I feel like is a strength of mine, and I think that that is instilled from an early age. Like my parents, you know, sort of, if I was passionate about something, they supported it and, you know, pushed, you know, gave me all the support to like continue to fall in love with, whether it's music or whether it's fishing, that type of thing. And so I think that that is essential. That's an essential part of leadership, and that's an essential part of doing something tangible. And, you know, if you're not excited about what you're doing, you're not going to do a great job. So when stuff starts to blend because you love it so much with work and play, and it becomes a part of what you're all about and who you are, it's easy to lead, and it's easy to move in a certain direction because the passion's there. And so I think, you know, tying it all into the waterkeeper in this conversation, moving it beyond me personally, but that's why like the educational component of what we do, especially like the junior advocacy program, is such a huge part of what we're doing and what we're trying to build here. Because if people fall in love with this place, it's easy to report issue. If you love Tampa Bay, it's so easy to freaking scan a QR code to report a fish kill.
Exactly.
Right? So passion, energy, finding something that you love, and then going full throttle, that's really what it's all about, you know?
Well, that's wonderful. I appreciate you sharing that with me, and I greatly appreciate your time here today, Justin. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and I appreciate your support of Waterkeeper, and you better fish the Waterman.
I will. I will this year. I'm gonna put it on my calendar. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you, guys.